Hey, this is part one of a two-part series, the finale. But I want to continue a conversation I started over on Instagram. What do you think? If it were you, would you want to leave with a fiance or the love of your life if you had to choose? But what's off for me is that most of the men have cold feet. Let's discuss. Welcome to Reality TV Therapy with me, Dr. Diane. Hi, welcome back. Sorry the finale was so long. I want to make this video a little shorter though. But yes, this episode could have been an email. Just repeat, I'm sorry, with some crying emojis. But the finale was a lot of circular conversations, and did we really need an extension on the end? Don't know what you thought. But in the theme of the night, our girl Rachel is not doing well. And I wanted to reach in and give Rachel a hug. She looked like she needed one. Actually, she looked so over the show that she wanted to be off the stage. I thought it was cruel in many ways to have to confront each of the boyfriends on stage and talk about it. My God, we've had enough. But the reality is people don't like how she's acting as the Bachelorette. And the question is why? But I want to get at what's beneath the sadness. What's the themes that's driving Rachel to make some of the decisions that she's making? And I don't know why it surprises me every time. Like, why the producers don't care more about their leads. Whether it's Clayton or Michelle and now Rachel. But we wouldn't have a show if someone didn't volunteer.
I volunteer as tribute.
But regardless, production can make anyone look like a villain, even the lead. Now, the theme of the night and the season is that most of the men have gotten cold feet. That makes 4 out of the final 6. We've got Johnny, Jason, Erich now, Aven, and if you count Zach as a self-elimination, then that only leaves Tino, the only one who's ready to propose. And every season, yes, we usually have 1 or 2 self-eliminations. But if Tino's the only one that wants to propose, you've got to ask what's the trend and what's happening. I think we know, at least as viewers, right, that the format itself has been awful. Not only is it awkward to be switching back and forth, the momentum of the drama kind of drops, but each person has had less time. So the men have not gotten the airtime. No wonder we didn't know much about them before we got into Hometowns. But the first breakup in this finale, we're back to Zach, where we had an interrupted rose ceremony. And finally, Rachel and Zach are able to talk, and they both agree that there were just some differences. Back to Zach and the interrupted rose ceremony. But I want to say good on Zach because he decides to leave on his own accord, like taking back his story. Why stand there and not get a rose? But Rachel didn't stop him. They both agreed that there were differences, and we'll leave it at that. Now, flipping back to the on-stage interaction between Zach and Rachel, it looks like they both have kind of settled it, right? No hard feelings. I think Zach got to reiterate that he was shocked, but Rachel was sort of over it, right? And Zach was going to propose if we got to that case, so I don't know if I want to say more about that. But what brings me next is to Aven, because he has been a fan favorite, one that none of us really saw coming. Of course, maybe Rachel always had feelings for him, but we didn't get to learn much about Aven until his hometown, the hometown that was kind of squeezed into the after the final rose. Okay, but did Rachel drag Aven through this debacle? And the question that everyone is talking about, including Nick Vial, is why didn't Rachel just say, you know, I like Tino more and send Aven home? Here's the thing. I don't know if it was that clear to Rachel, because Rachel has had no trouble sending some of the other men home. But I think when it came to Aven, she wasn't 100% decided. Last week, I'd mentioned that sometimes the lead gets to say who her first date is. And remember, Rachel and Gabby are talking, and she says very clearly, Aven's going to be my first date. If she was 100% certain about Tino, she might have chosen Tino first. But leaving that hometown of Tino's where the family wasn't 100% sold on her, where they didn't like her, I think Rachel is still ambivalent. And so isn't it okay? Isn't the lead supposed to take every opportunity in the fantasy suite and try to get to know Aven a little bit more? And that's the reason why I think Rachel is freaked out about Tino. She's not 100% certain. Maybe she's 90% in. But it's awfully harsh for people like Nick to say that Rachel was being intentional, that she was smiling all the while she was letting Aven go. I don't think that's the case at all. And this leads me to the next question. Is it too much to ask for an engagement? Let's ponder that for a minute. Because after all, the Bachelor Nation logo is an engagement ring. It's the brand. And Rachel and Gabby have been clear from the beginning. And the men know this too. They're on a show to get engaged. But since the majority of men can't get there, is it reasonable to suggest let's leave together? And because so many of them are talking about it, we do have to assume that because of the format this year, there just wasn't enough time to get there. So, would it make sense if they left with a promise ring, as I suggested? But here's the thing, and I want you to also think about this. I think it's very different for the male to leave and suggest, like Matt and James did, or even Juan Pablo, hey, let's leave, but let's still continue to date and see where this goes. For the men, I think that's okay. And it's worked out actually for Matt, James, and Rachel thus far. But what about if you're the woman and you're a lead? Will Gabby think, okay, this is great. You are the love of my life, and we'll leave as partners? Now, if you're the love of my life, then that's not a bad decision. But for Rachel, I don't know if she's there yet with either one of these men. So of course she's leading kind of with this idea of a proposal. Because here's the thing, how else does a woman feel special? Okay, you're dating multiple people on the show, and it's the proposal that says, I choose you. It's the proposal that says, I've known from the moment I met you that I'm in love with you. Call me a romantic. But the proposal is the icing on the cake more so than just leaving as boyfriend and girlfriend. Let me know what you think in the comments. So I'm also suggesting have a long engagement. You can date while you are an engaged couple. And I just wanted to throw that around because, again, people are saying that Rachel is being hypocritical because she's doing the same thing that Clayton did. And I don't think we should be throwing especially these two women under the bus simply for wanting what was promised to them, which was an engagement. Now, back to Aven. We're never going to know what happened in the fantasy suites. Did Aven promise an engagement ring and then do a Uno card and change his mind? Did he just change in front of Rachel's friends? Did Rachel misunderstand him? I want to tell you a not so funny story. So I was dating this guy. I lived in California. He lived in Atlanta. Long distance relationship. We're a few months in, and clearly on the phone we were talking about a possible future, and I said, I just don't see myself ever moving to Atlanta. We left that go. I thought I had done due diligence, said never moving. Months later, my boyfriend at the time said, well, and then when you move to Atlanta, and I said, excuse me? Move to Atlanta? He said, well, yeah, you said you would move. And I said, no. I said I wouldn't move. And we kind of had a laugh, sort of a cry about it. But that's how easy it is to misunderstand. And I thought I had been doing it, due diligence. So therein lies the possibility that it was truly a miscommunication, that they both heard it differently. And I love that Rachel's friends are advocating on her behalf, right? They are going after what's important to her. They tell Aven, she's not going to be happy if she doesn't leave engaged. And here's where Rachel feels embarrassed. She's embarrassed because she endorsed Aven so highly. I don't have a doubt about him. He's completely all in. But then the friends get a different story, that he's not all in. So now, I don't think Aven deserves to be dragged through this. But if it's truly a misunderstanding, the way I suggested mine was, I do think that we can see it kind of from both sides. And Aven makes some good points, right? Like, why don't we date in real life? But as I say, I don't think for a woman, especially the lead, that that's the specialness that she's looking for. But I can agree with Nick, and he had Greg Gripo was on his podcast, and they were talking about Rachel and that she's using a lot of self-centered language, like I want and I need and I don't like. And Aven is using different words. He's using couple words. I like this, right? He's saying us and we. But Rachel is in a difficult position, which is different than Aven. She's running a show. She's been told that you've got to get two men to get down on a knee. And that is the typical narration of the show. So I don't want to keep supporting Rachel, but she is 26, and cumulatively we have to see that it's been a theme of rejection, and more so than ever, I could think that this could make any woman feel insecure. Lots of abandonment, lots of rejection, and this is just one more of those circumstances. And I don't know, if I was Rachel when I was 26, I don't know that I wouldn't have been screwing up myself. But I'm convinced that Rachel didn't tell Aven, though she's told other men directly, that Tino was 100% her person, and that's why she's left it open. And Aven's saying all the right things, but let's see where this finally lands. I don't know why I get the feeling, could this be something, if it doesn't work out with Tino, that Aven steps back in? I just don't know. I'm going to leave that as a possibility. Okay, let's get to Tino. We have a visit. Tino visits her family. All of that looked lovely on the surface. Lucky for Rachel, Tino's really all in, right? Rachel has done now a good job with her family. He and her parents back her. I love this. Her parents, mom and dad, both confront Tino. Hey, my daughter's worried about your family. Do you think your parents are going to come around? And Tino, in his typical Tino fashion, he says, yes, of course, they will be all in on Rachel. So I think her family did a really nice job trying to support their daughter, but this journey is not over yet. Stay tuned for part 2. Now, next up, why we have the show continue, we've got Rachel and Erich. Yes, we have to come back to them. One more guy who's suddenly not certain. And I don't know if Gabby is going to say, you are the love of my life, let's date, that'll be fine. Or will Erich say, gosh, a proposal is so important to you that I will do that for you. So I think they're trying to get us to wait till the very end. But there's some controversy with this couple. I'm so sad to hear. If you've heard about the blackface photo of Erich from high school, and now recently Erich's ex, of only 2 months though, has resurfaced saying that she was disappointed in him and that he's a clout chaser. Ugh, I hate to see this, but at the end of the day, it's going to be whether this couple has enough in common and they will see it to move forward with this. My advice to anyone is you got to turn out social media at that point and focus, turn towards each other and turn away from the cameras. Okay. So next, I want to just go over a very quick spoiler alert. You've probably heard this already. I'm not spoiling anything, but they're proposing that possibly Zach is going to be the next Bachelor. How do you feel about this? I don't know. You know, I'm in no matter what. I follow the show for the cast of characters, not just the lead. But my only worry is the pattern that we keep repeating. I know it makes for good TV, but we go from one hurt, rejected person to the lead. Same thing happened to Rachel and Gabby. Not enough time in between seasons. I don't think Clayton was as devastated by Michelle, but we go from hurt person to the lead, And I really think in order for the lessons to be learned, the healing to be learned, is that we need to put more of a gap between seasons. Alrighty, so let's end with what my reality check is. What can we learn? Well, I think when it comes to relationships, and I've said the same thing about online dating, don't lead with too much of an expectation. I don't mean don't have standards. I mean, if you keep talking about the outcome, the goal, whether it's to be proposed or engaged, or to have a long-term relationship, we forget that we have to focus on the quality of the relationship. So quality over quantity. And here's the thing, because you can both say, oh, I want to have children and get married. You want to have children and get married. And we drop our guard down. And now we're fighting over a bunch of little things, and we're not focused on the quality of the relationship, because people make decisions about their future based upon the quality. Now, in this case, we don't have enough quality. But focus on the quality of your relationships. And if you do, you can't go wrong. Okay, stay tuned for part 2. And drop me some comments what you thought. Make sure you subscribe to my channel too.